Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. You are safe now. Wherever you are, however the day has been, it's time to rest. Let your thoughts drift like fog through a quiet valley. Let the worries of the day melt like snow in early spring. Imagine the softness of wool beneath your fingertips, the slow sway of tall grass in the breeze, the warmth of a thick coat wrapped around you as you walk gently through the mountains. Everything is still. Everything is quiet. Everything is slow. Our story today begins in the cool, early light of morning, high in the Italian Alps, during a time when the world was full of noise and fear. But here, in this small corner of the mountains, life moves at the same gentle pace it always has. A shepherd boy, no more than 17, wakes before the sun and rises from his straw mattress. The cottage is cold, the stone walls thick and holding in the night's chill, but the hearth still hums faintly with the last of yesterday's fire. He stirs the embers with a stick, lays down a few dry twigs, and slowly, gently, the flame returns. Outside, the sky is a soft gray, and the mountain air is fresh with the scent of pine and snow. The war has not yet reached this far into the hills. The shepherd has heard about it on the old radio when it worked, and sometimes in hushed conversations between his father and uncles. But mostly the war feels like something distant, something happening to other people in faraway cities. He pulls on his wool coat, patched at the elbows, and wraps a scarf around his neck. He pours water from a clay jug and washes his face, blinking at the icy splash. His dog, a shaggy brown mutt with gentle eyes and quiet paws, waits by the door, tail thumping softly. They do not speak, but they understand one another. The boy opens the wooden door with a creak, and the early light spills in. The world outside is dusted in snow, soft and sparkling, the kind that makes no sound when you walk through it. The sheep, huddled near the old fence, bleat softly as he approaches. One by one they follow him, forming a line like soft, moving clouds on the earth. Their journey begins at the edge of the forest, where tall evergreens sway gently in the breeze. The snow falls again, light and slow like feathers drifting down. The shepherd walks steadily, his stick tapping the ground with each step, guiding the flock down a path only he and the dog know well. The path winds up and around the cliffs, following the rhythm of the land, past frozen streams and mossy stones. Far below in the valley, faint shapes move, soldiers maybe, trucks, but they are just shadows, too far away to worry about. Here in the high quiet, the only sounds are the soft crunch of snow under boots, the gentle jingling of the sheep's bell, and the wind whispering through the trees. There is a place halfway up the ridge where the rocks form a little overhang like a natural shelter. The boy stops there to rest. He sets down a pouch of bread and dried apples, feeds a little to the dog, and chews slowly, eyes watching the gray sky. The sheep gather around, their wool steaming slightly in the cold. He leans back against the stone and closes his eyes, not to sleep, but just to breathe. Inhale, exhale. The mountain breathes with him. He thinks of his mother, who used to sing to him when he was younger, and the lullaby she hummed on long snowy nights. He hums one now, soft and slow, barely above a whisper, and the dog rests his head on the boy's boot. By midday, the sun slips through the clouds and paints the snow in soft gold. The boy rises and continues the climb, guiding the flock to a pasture high above, where the grass still peeks through the snow and the wind is kind. The war, though ever present in the distance, never reaches this place. But sometimes the shepherd finds signs: a rusted helmet tucked under a fallen log, a boot print too large to be his own, or a piece of paper fluttering against a tree, scribbled with a name he cannot read. He leaves these things alone. He is not part of that world. His duty is simple: protect the sheep, watch the path, return home before dark. He remembers a story his grandfather once told him about how the mountains remember everything. Every footstep, every whisper, every breath taken in fear or in peace. It all lingers in the stones, in the trees, in the streams. And so he moves with care. He touches the bark of the trees gently, greets each bend in the path like an old friend. The sheep seem to know the way as well, moving calmly, peacefully, their trust in him absolute. When they reach the high pasture, the boy whistles a soft tune, and the dog runs ahead, circling the flock with quiet pride. The sheep settle, munching slowly at the frozen grass, and the boy sits on a flat rock, pulling his coat tighter against the breeze. From here, the valley below looks like a painting. Smoke from distant chimneys curls into the sky. A church bell rings faintly, carried by the wind. Somewhere down there, people hide, people fight, people flee. But up here, time slows. The boy pulls a folded letter from his coat pocket, a letter from his older brother, who went to fight months ago. He's read it a dozen times, the words now worn and soft at the edges. It speaks of cold nights, of fear, of hope. The boy closes his eyes and whispers a prayer, not out loud, but inside his heart, the way his mother taught him. As the sun begins to lower behind the peaks, casting long purple shadows across the snow, the shepherd stands and calls his flock. The sheep move with sleepy obedience, and the boy leads them down once more toward the flickering lights of home. The path is steeper now, but familiar. Every step is known, every turn a memory. The dog runs ahead and stops, waiting, always watching. And the boy, this simple shepherd boy in a world full of noise and fire, keeps walking, quiet and steady. The descent is slower than the climb, not because the boy is tired, though he is, but because the world seems to ask for quiet. The last bit of sunlight rests gently on the snow, turning it a pale blue, like the sky just before dawn. The sheep follow without fuss, their round bodies moving in slow rhythm, like boats floating on a silent sea of white. The boy's hand rests lightly on his walking stick, not for balance, but out of habit, his fingers tracing the grooves worn in the wood over many seasons. The dog glances back now and then, making sure everything is as it should be. He is not a puppy anymore, but still quick and loyal, with the calm eyes of an animal who has known both peace and fear. The shepherd thinks of supper, of the fire he will build again when they return to the stone cottage. He'll cook something simple, a bit of lentil stew, perhaps, or roasted chestnuts if he still has some tucked away in the corner basket. His stomach growls softly at the thought, but he pushes it away, focusing instead on the trail ahead. In these mountains, one wrong step can turn peace into panic, but he knows the path like the lines of his own palm. He knows where the ice hides beneath loose snow, where the rocks shift when touched, where birds cry out if something strange moves through the woods. They pass the frozen stream again, the same one they crossed this morning. It runs quiet beneath its thin coat of ice, whispering secrets only the mountain understands. The boy pauses here, not out of caution, but out of ritual. He crouches down and brushes a bit of snow away, revealing a flat stone just beneath the surface. Years ago, before the war began, his mother brought him here and told him to always stop at this place. "The water remembers," she said, "and when you kneel here, you are not alone." He touches the stone now, fingers cold but steady, and whispers a quiet thanks. As they continue down the slope, the trees begin to thin, giving way to the wide open slope where the cottage sits, nestled between two old pines. Smoke curls from the chimney now. Someone is home. Maybe his uncle, who sometimes comes to help with the animals, or maybe his sister, returned early from gathering kindling. Either way, the warmth calls to him. He whistles once, low and soft, and the sheep begin to move more quickly, sensing the comfort of evening. The dog trots ahead, tail swaying with quiet purpose. Inside the cottage, the light is golden and flickering. A fire has been built, and a pot hangs above it, gently steaming. The shepherd's sister turns from the hearth, her face pink from the heat, a smile soft on her lips. She does not speak loudly, no one does anymore, but her voice is gentle and warm. She hands him a bowl, and he eats slowly, savoring each bite. The stew is thick with potatoes and carrots, and maybe, just maybe, a piece of dried meat. He doesn't ask. There are things now they don't speak about, not because they are secrets, but because they are heavy and the walls are thin. Later, when the fire has burned low and the sheep are safe in the pen, the boy sits near the window, wrapped in a wool blanket. The stars are beginning to show, tiny points of light in the sky that seems impossibly wide. Somewhere in the far distance, a soft boom rolls through the hills, not close, but not far enough to ignore. He watches the dog's ears twitch, but the animal doesn't move from his spot by the fire. The boy closes his eyes just for a moment and listens. There is something comforting about listening to the mountain at night. The way the trees creak softly in the wind, the way snow slides off the rooftop and lands with a hush, the way the wind wraps around the stones like a lullaby. He imagines the mountain as an old guardian, large and slow, keeping watch while the world below tears itself apart. Up here, everything is slower, softer. Even the danger moves like fog present, but not yet touching him. Before bed, he steps outside once more. The cold hits his face like a whisper, sharp but not unkind. The stars are brighter now, and he counts them in silence. 1, 2, 3. 27 before he loses track. The trees are still. The pen is quiet. The sheep are already asleep, curled into themselves like soft stones. The dog comes to stand beside him, and together they watch the sky for just a moment longer. Then the boy turns, opens the creaky door, and steps back inside. His bed is simple, a mattress, stuffed with straw and covered in 2 thick wool blankets. He lies down slowly, the warmth from the fire still in the air. The dog curls up at his feet, sighing once before closing his eyes. The boy pulls the blanket up to his chin and lets his mind drift. He thinks of his brother, of the letter in his coat pocket, of the stone by the stream, of the sheep's bell, of his mother's lullabies. His breathing slows. His thoughts melt into the shadows. The mountain watches over him, and in the quiet of the high hills, the shepherd sleeps. That night, the wind shifts. It whistles down from the highest peaks, slipping between shutters and under doors, bringing with it a scent of faraway wood smoke and something sharper, something unfamiliar. The boy lies awake beneath his wool blankets, his body still, but his ears tuned to every creak and sigh of the cottage. The dog stirs once beside the hearth, sniffs the air, then settles again. tail tucked under chin. The fire has gone low, glowing softly in the stone hearth, casting flickers of amber on the walls like old candlelight in a chapel. The boy watches the ceiling. His eyes are open, but his mind is somewhere far away back in the woods. Perhaps, or following those footprints that led him to the girl with frightened eyes. He thinks of her huddled against a tree, her fingers shaking, her coat too thin for the mountain cold. He wonders where she sleeps now, and whether she found more to eat or a safe place to hide. He wonders if she's alone or if others are with her, scattered through the hills like lost birds. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the windows gently. But it's not a scary sound. It's the kind of wind that makes you pull your blankets tighter and feel thankful for four walls. It moves like a lullaby through the pine branches, like an old song hummed by the mountain itself. Eventually, the boy's eyes grow heavy, and his thoughts become softer, lighter, drifting from one memory to another until sleep folds itself around him like a second blanket. By morning, the world is white. A thick snow has fallen overnight, blanketing the hills and woods in silence. Even sound seems to move slower, quieter, muffled by the heavy air. The boy steps outside and sinks ankle-deep into it, his breath curling out in puffs of steam. The sheep stir inside the pen, wool dusted with flakes, blinking at the brightness. Everything looks new, like the mountain has wrapped itself in linen. He feeds the animals first, tossing out bundles of dry grass and scattering some cornmeal into wooden troughs. The dog bounds through the snow with quiet delight, leaping and circling the flock, his energy soft but steady. The boy smiles. He whistles a tune, and the sound disappears almost instantly into the cold. There is no plan today, no long path to walk. The snow is too deep for the upper pastures, and the clouds look heavy with more to come. So they stay near the cottage, keeping close to home. Midday arrives with little change in light. The sky remains overcast, pale and flat, like paper left out in the sun. Inside, the boy and his sister share a warm meal onion soup with stale bread dipped until it softens. There is honey, a rare treat saved from better times, drizzled slowly onto the crust. They eat in near silence, their eyes meeting occasionally, smiles exchanged with no need for words. Outside, the snow falls in thick, slow flakes, swirling in the wind like ash from a distant fire. Later, the boy finds himself by the old storage shed, sorting through sacks of dried grain and bundles of twine. His fingers are numb, but he works carefully, stacking supplies, checking for mold or signs of mice. As he moves a heavy sack from the corner, something small tumbles out a can, rusted around the edge with the label half peeled. It's not theirs. He holds it up, puzzled. Imported food, German lettering, not from this village, not from this house. His brow furrows. He glances toward the trees. Someone's been here, recently, not just passing through, but stopping, hiding. He says nothing, but the thought sits with him all day, pressing into the back of his mind like a finger on glass. The girl, could she have come here, or someone else? Someone looking for shelter, for safety, for anything warm. The snow continues through the evening, piling higher against the fence posts, softening every edge of the landscape. The world grows quieter, still. That night, the boy places an extra blanket by the hearth. He sets out a tin of food beside the woodpile, says nothing to his sister, and simply returns to his bed. He does not wait. He does not watch. But in the morning, the blanket is gone, and so is the tin. For the next few days, the rhythm changes. He wakes early, tends the sheep, checks the trail for fresh prints, and leaves behind small gifts, food, cloth, sometimes even matches. Always in the same spot, and always by morning, they are gone. No message. No sign, just absence. Just emptiness where something had once been. And slowly, the mountain becomes not just a home, but a space shared quietly, respectfully with those who live in its shadow, unseen. One morning, just after the snow begins to melt and the ice starts to drip from the trees, the boy finds something different. A piece of paper, folded neatly, placed beneath a flat stone where he usually leaves his offerings. He picks it up, opens it carefully. The handwriting is clumsy but clear. In shaky Italian it says, "Thank you, still alive." Nothing more. No name, no plea. Just those 3 words. He folds the note and places it in his coat pocket beside his brother's letter. Then he looks out toward the hills, the treetops, the curling mist that drifts between them, and nods once. The air feels lighter somehow. Not safe, not yet, but not alone either. And so the days go on. The sheep grow rounder, their coats thick and ready for spring shearing. The sun returns in soft patches, warming the rock faces and waking the birds. The boy continues his path through the forest, through the snowmelt, through the silence. He follows the mountain's rhythm, slow and patient. He listens, he watches, he protects. And somewhere out there, beyond his sight, someone else is doing the same. Spring in the mountains does not arrive like a parade. It comes softly, hesitantly, like someone knocking gently on a door they're not sure they're allowed to open. The snow doesn't vanish all at once, but instead melts in slow retreat, revealing dark earth, flattened grass, and fallen twigs. The trees, bare and brittle for so many months, begin to whisper differently in the wind, no longer just groaning with frost, but rustling, stretching, remembering how to be green again. The shepherd boy rises with the sun, now its pale golden light beginning to stream once more through the high eastern pass. His breath still forms clouds in the morning air, but they are smaller now, disappearing more quickly. He opens the pen gate and watches the sheep step forward, blinking at the brightness. The dog nudges the slowest ones gently, tail wagging in a lazy rhythm. A new season begins, though the war continues far away, louder than ever, growing like thunder on the horizon. This morning, the boy takes the familiar southern path, the one that skirts the ridge and leads to the wild pastures blooming near the frozen lake's edge. The trail is muddy now, thick and soft beneath his boots, and he walks carefully to avoid sinking too deep. The sheep follow, complaining gently, not used to the damp yet. Birds call from above, first one, then two, then many, returning from wherever they've waited out the cold. Their songs feel unfamiliar after the long silence of winter, but they are welcome. At the lake, most of the ice has cracked, forming jagged lines across the glassy surface. The edges ripple gently in the breeze, and the boy watches the reflections shimmer sky, branch, cloud, sheep, boy. For a moment he stares at his own shape in the water and doesn't quite recognize it. He's taller now, thinner. His hair is longer than it used to be, curling slightly at the ends. His hands look older, even if his eyes do not. He wonders what his brother would think. He sits on a flat boulder, still cool from the night, and unwraps his morning bread. It's tougher now, baked without yeast flour and water and little else. but it fills the stomach. The dog lies beside him, paws stretched out, watching the flock graze near the tree line. Insects begin to buzz, shy at first, then bolder as the sun rises higher. The air smells of thawed soil and bark. Across the lake, on the far side, something catches his eye. Movement. A figure in the trees, too far to see clearly, but there nonetheless. Not walking, sitting, watching. The boy does not wave, does not move, only keeps his gaze steady for a while until the shape vanishes behind the trees. He says nothing to the dog, just finishes his bread and rises to continue the walk. It is not fear he feels, it is awareness, the quiet kind, the kind that lives in the ribs and behind the eyes, that teaches you to notice small things, the broken twig, the quiet hush before birds take flight, the smell of smoke on someone else's coat. The mountain has taught him this language, the war too, and the girl from the woods. Days pass in this rhythm. The grass grows. The sheep wander farther each day. The dog naps in sun patches along the trail. The boy still leaves food near the woodshed, though no more notes appear. He doesn't mind. Some kindnesses do not need answers. One evening, as he returns to the cottage with the flock, he hears a whistle low, short, and out of place. Not bird, not wind, not sheep. A person. It comes from the old chapel ruins, half a mile below the ridge where the stone bell tower leans like a tired old man. He hesitates. The dog growls softly, a sound more curious than angry. The boy gestures to his sister, who's stacking kindling near the door. She understands, takes the flock's lead rope, and steers them toward the pen while he follows the sound. The chapel is quiet when he arrives. Roof long gone, windows broken, altar covered in moss. But inside, in the shadow of the altar, someone sits. A man, wrapped in a tattered coat, hands wrapped in bandages, face thin and pale. The boy stops at the threshold. He says nothing at first, just listens. The wind rustles through the tall grass. A crow calls overhead. Then the man speaks, barely more than a breath. Water? The boy nods. He reaches into his satchel and pulls out a small tin, hands it over. The man drinks slowly, eyes fluttering shut. He wears no uniform, not anymore. But his boots tell a story. So does the strange accent beneath the layers of dust on his voice. A soldier, a deserter, or perhaps just someone who walked too far from safety. The boy asks no questions. Instead, he places a small loaf beside the man's knee, stands for a moment longer, then turns back toward the cottage. As he walks, he feels the weight of the encounter settle into him, not heavy, but present. Another name he does not know, another thread in the quiet tapestry of the mountain. That night, the fire burns a little longer. His sister mends a torn sleeve by the firelight, her stitches neat and quiet. The boy stares into the flames, letting his mind wander along mountain trails and into half-frozen lakes and ruined chapels. He does not speak of the man, not yet. Instead, he whispers a prayer, not the kind from church, but the kind passed down through memory. Keep us in the silence, keep us in the snow. Let those who pass be held in shadow. Let those who stay be warmed by stone. The wind sighs against the window. The sheep settle into sleep. The boy closes his eyes, his breath slow and even, and the mountain listens. Morning breaks with a soft mist that hangs low in the valley, clinging to trees and fences and rooftops like a gentle hush. The shepherd boy rises slowly, stretching beneath his blanket as the faint scent of wood smoke seeps in through the cracks in the stone walls. The dog is already awake, tail thumping once against the floorboards before falling still again. Outside, the world looks half asleep, everything wrapped in quiet gray. The boy pulls on his boots, ties his scarf, and opens the door into the morning stillness. The air smells of wet grass and pine needles. The mist dampens every sound, the creak of the door, the crunch of gravel, the soft bleating of sheep and the pen. Even his footsteps feel muffled, like the earth itself is walking lightly today. He feeds the flock, strokes the dog's head, and takes a moment to breathe in the cool air. Then, without needing to speak, he and the dog begin the slow walk up toward the mid-ridge pastures, where the ground dries faster and the grass grows sweeter. As they walk, the boy notices the tiniest signs of spring's deepening hold. Buds pushing up from between stones, spider webs glinting with dew, bees just a few buzzing sleepily from one purple flower to the next. A single lark trills from a branch above the trail, and the sound is so sudden, so sweet, that the boy stops walking just to listen. The melody spirals upward like a ribbon on the breeze. He doesn't smile, not exactly, but the corners of his mouth soften, and he tilts his head to the side like he's listening to someone whispering a story he almost forgot. At the pasture, the sheep spread out, grateful for the fresh shoots of grass that poke through the muddy soil. The dog moves among them like wind through branches, quiet, present, careful. The boy finds his usual spot by the edge of the forest, where a flat rock warmed by the sun makes for a perfect seat. He pulls out a piece of cloth and unrolls a small Lunchmore hard bread, a slice of dried pear, a bit of soft cheese left over from winter stores. He eats in silence, chewing slowly, eyes on the treetops. It is there, in the stillness, that he hears it again. That soft whistle, not quite a bird, not quite the wind, a pattern. 2 short notes, then 1 long, a pause, then again. His spine stiffens, but only slightly. He waits, watches. After a few minutes, a shape appears at the edge of the trees, a hand raised in a slow wave. The boy doesn't stand. He simply returns the wave, low and calm. The figure doesn't approach, just nods once, then disappears again. He doesn't follow. He knows better than to chase shadows in wartime. But he recognizes the rhythm, now the whistle, the gesture. A sign of peace, a thank you, or maybe just the mountain's way of reminding him, you are not the only one watching. That night, he brings an extra pot of soup to the chapel rooms. He doesn't wait to see who comes for it. He places the pot on a stone and walks away, the dog padding beside him. As they move through the misty woods, he feels the trees watching, not with suspicion, but with understanding. They've seen it all. Wars, famines, lovers meeting in secret, refugees hiding beneath fallen logs. The mountain does not forget. It simply absorbs, holds, keeps quiet. Back home, his sister has lit the fire early. The cottage is warm and smells faintly of rosemary and boiling water. She hums softly as she sets out bowls, her voice barely above a breath. The boy sits beside the hearth and takes off his boots, placing them near the fire to dry. They do not speak, but the air between them feels full of stories unspoken, of paths crossed and not crossed, of things that pass between people who have survived without needing to explain how. Later, he reads the same letter again, the one from his brother. He knows it by heart, but reading it feels like touching a photograph, something to prove that yes, this person existed, and yes, these words were once written by his hand. The letter ends with a sentence he often repeats in his mind when the wind howls a little too loud outside the shutters. Keep walking, stay in the high ground. I'll find you again. The next day, the snow is gone from the pastures. Only small patches remain in the shaded parts of the path. The boy leads the flock higher toward the summer field that lies in a wide bowl between three peaks. It's a longer walk, but the air is clear, and the sheep move with more energy now. The dog runs ahead, stopping only to glance back and check that everyone is following. Along the trail, the boy spots another sign, a scarf, tied to a branch, flapping gently in the breeze. It's a child's scarf, red and white, faded, but still bright enough to notice. He unties it slowly, looks around. No sound, no movement. He folds it carefully and places it in his coat pocket. He doesn't know why. Not yet. Maybe he'll leave it near the shed. Maybe someone will take it back. That evening, he writes a note. Just a few words. I saw the scarf. I hope you're safe. He leaves it beside a folded cloth near the woodpile. In the morning, both are gone. He does not know if it is the girl again, or the man from the chapel, or someone else entirely, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the thread, invisible and fragile, connecting lives in the shadows of the war, not through speeches or battles, but through food left quietly on stones, notes tucked beneath rocks, eyes that meet across snowy fields and say, I see you. I won't speak your name, but I see you. And so the shepherd walks, each day a little farther, each step soft, each whistle quiet, each moment folded gently into the memory of the mountain. The days begin to stretch longer now. The light lingers in the sky just a little after supper, casting soft gold through the window slats of the cottage as the shepherd boy lays his coat over the back of the old wooden chair. The sheep bleat more eagerly in the mornings, restless and lively in the warmer air. Insects hum at the edges of the fields, and the trees wear a brighter green, their leaves trembling gently like a whisper in a dream. There is less snow now, only small patches hidden beneath stones or nestled in the shadowed side of the slopes, and the path to the high pasture becomes more sure beneath his feet with every step. He rises now not by the cold, but by the faint chirr of birds outside his window, the kind of music that sounds like the beginning of something. The dog stretches with a low grunt, shaking sleep from his limbs, and follows the boy out the door as the sky ripens from deep blue to the pale orange blush of sunrise. The sheep follow soon after, tails swaying, heads nodding with calm predictability. Each day the trail grows more familiar again, even though it never truly changed. Along the higher ridge trail, where wind often curls like ribbons between the trees, the boy stops to fix the loose stones that mark a fork in the road. One path leads to the old quarry long abandoned, choked with moss and nettles. The other leads onward to the pasture, to the wide open bowl where the grass grows thick and wild and where, sometimes, wildflowers paint the hill like embroidery. He crouches and adjusts the rocks carefully, thinking of the stories his father once told about bandits who used to live in the quarry cave long before the war. Now the only things hiding there are foxes and memories. The wind picks up again as he rounds the bend, and with it comes a sound he hasn't heard in months: church bells. Faint, distant, but real, ringing not for prayer or celebration, but for warning or mourning. He pauses. The dog looks up too, ears pointed toward the sound. And then, just as quickly as they began, the bells fall silent again, leaving only the rustling of grass and the sigh of the mountain behind. The boy stares out across the valley. The smoke is rising again, thin and dark against the pale blue sky. That night, he lies awake longer, not from fear, but from wondering if the bell was for someone he knows, wondering how many people are hiding just beyond the next ridge, sleeping in barns or hollowed trees, keeping warm with threadbare blankets and silence. He stares at the ceiling, and the shadows from the hearth dance above him like quiet thoughts. He reaches for the letter from his brother again. He doesn't open it this time, just holds it in his hand, folding the edge between his fingers, letting the soft sound of paper calm him. The next day, the wind changes. It comes from the south, warm and dry, carrying the scent of something burned. The boy walks slower on the trail, pausing more often to listen. Everything feels a little too still, as though the forest is holding its breath. The dog stays closer now, no longer darting ahead, but walking beside the boy's knee, ears flicking toward every tiny sound. They reach the upper field by late morning, and the sheep spread out, grazing with calm purpose. But the boy does not sit as he usually does. He stands at the edge of the clearing, eyes scanning the tree line, body still. And then he sees them. Two figures, low and quiet, moving through the trees across the field. Not fast, not dangerous, careful. They carry something, a bundle, between them, wrapped in a coat. A person or supplies, he can't tell. He does not call out. He does not move. He only watches. And then one of them looks up and sees him. They freeze, staring across the field. It is a woman, her face thin and sharp, eyes wary but not cruel. The boy raises a hand, slow and calm. No words, just the hand. The universal sign for I see you. I mean no harm. She stares for a long moment, then nods. She turns to the other figure, and they vanish behind the trees. The boy lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He says nothing. The sheep continue to eat, unaware. The dog stands beside him, tail low, breathing steady. The mountain holds the moment in its quiet hands and moves on. Later, near sunset, the boy leaves a basket at the edge of the field. Bread, a jar of broth, bandages, a clean scarf. He does not return to check if they're taken. He does not need to. The next day they are gone. In their place, a single smooth stone sits on the basket's edge painted red, with a tiny white flower drawn in the center. A thank you. A quiet gift. These are the days now, each one like a page in a book written without ink. Each step on the trail, a sentence. Each shared glance, each offered loaf, each whisper of wind through the trees, a kind of language spoken only by those who walk softly, who live simply, who survive through kindness instead of force. The war still echoes in the valley. Trucks still pass far below. Once the boy hears the faint crack of gunfire, carried from many miles away, but the mountain remains, and the shepherd walks it with care, his boots pressing soft stories into the earth, his dog watching the horizon, and his heart full of names he never learns but remembers all the same. The days slip into each other now, gentle and quiet, like footsteps across moss. There is no calendar in the cottage, just the rhythm of light and shadow, the feel of the air, the soft awakening of trees and flowers that know more about time than any clock ever could. The shepherd boy no longer counts the days since winter ended, or since the last note was found beneath the rock, or since the scarf fluttered in the trees. There is only this morning, and the sheep waiting at the gate, and the wind whispering down the mountain trail, calling him forward like it always does. He walks slower now, not out of weariness, but out of intention. Each step feels like part of something older, something sacred. The trail to the upper field is drier now, the mud hardened into cracked veins that pattern the earth like old maps. He notices everything, the tiny sprout of a violet curling up between stones, the place where a fox has pressed paw prints near the stream, the mark of wheels on the far edge of the ridge where no wagon should go. But he keeps walking. He says nothing. He trusts the mountain to carry the weight of what he sees. The dog runs ahead again, returning to his usual rhythm. He leaps over roots and bounds through tall grass, then returns to the boy's side to check in, to listen, to look. Their bond is quiet, no commands, no shouts, just shared space, shared memory. The sheep graze lazily, their coats heavy with the last of their winter weight. Soon it will be shearing time. Soon the clippers will buzz, and the wool will pile in soft mounds on the floor, and the barn will smell of lanolin and warm fur. But not yet. By midday, the boy sits beneath a linden tree that leans at the edge of the field, its roots wrapped around a boulder like fingers around a warm cup. This is where he often rests now. The stone is smooth, shaped by years of wind and rain, and the tree above gives just enough shade to cool the space without darkening it. He unwraps his lunch, lowly bread and soft cheese, a few slices of pickled beet. He eats with calm, unhurried bites, his eyes on the sky. It is then, without sound, that a bird lands nearby. Not just any bird, a dove, white with soft gray streaks, wings fluttering in slow bursts as it settles on the low branch above. In its beak, a scrap of something cloth or paper. It stays only a moment, long enough for the boy to see, then takes off again, the wind from its wings brushing his face like a ghost of something remembered. He waits. He knows better than to chase signs. But when he finishes his meal and begins to walk again, he finds it, caught on a branch beside the trail, just a corner of paper, torn and caught in the bark. He unfolds it carefully. A drawing, childlike but careful. A mountain, a sheep, a boy with a stick. No name, no message. But he knows it is meant for him. The wind shifts, soft and fragrant now, filled with the scent of new blossoms and damp stone. The shepherd tucks the paper into his coat pocket and continues along the trail, the sheep behind him like quiet shadows, the dog weaving through their legs. His heart beats with something that is not quite hope, but close. That night, as twilight paints the sky in soft ribbons of violet and rose, the boy sits outside the cottage with a small lantern flickering beside him. He sketches in the dirt with the stick shapes of animals, trees, stars. He draws a small bird, just like the one he saw. Then he smooths it away with his palm. Some things are meant to vanish. Others stay, even when unseen. His sister joins him with 2 cups of warm milk and a single sugar cube split between them. She doesn't ask about the paper. She doesn't ask why he's quieter than usual. She simply sits beside him, her presence like a blanket around his shoulders. They sip in silence, listening to the creak of trees and the sleepy shuffle of sheep in the pen. In the distance, thunder rolls not from a storm, but from something else. The sound of trucks, heavy and slow, moving through the valley. The boy closes his eyes. The dog stiffens for a moment, then settles again. It passes, like so many things pass now, loud, threatening, but far away. The next day, there is a new sign. At the chapel ruins, where the roof once arched over candles and prayer, someone has left a small bundle wrapped in fabric. Inside, dried herbs, a strip of cloth embroidered with red thread, and a folded page from a book. A single sentence is underlined. There is peace in the act of tending. He reads it twice, then places the cloth in his satchel, not as a keepsake, but as a piece of something shared. That evening, he leaves a bundle in return. Not just food this time, but a tool and extra pair of shears well wrapped with oiled hinges. A gift only a shepherd would give. He does not expect thanks. He does not look back. He only listens to the sound of the sheep behind him, to the rhythm of his steps, to the mountain breathing in time with the quiet beat of his heart. And all around him the world blooms slowly, softly, secretly. 1,000 little lives waking up in the cracks between stones, in the shadows beneath trees, in the hollow space between war and peace. This is the life he tends, not with grand gestures, but with careful steps, kind eyes, and a silence so deep it feels like love. The next few weeks unfold like a soft breeze through tall grass, gentle, steady, and without urgency. The shepherd boy walks the same trails, tends the same sheep, boils the same soup on the same crackling hearth. But within the sameness, something has changed. Not in what he does, but in how it feels, as if the quiet he carries is no longer just for protection, but for preservation, for holding space for those who have no name and no voice in the great clattering roar of the world below. The trees are heavier with green now, not the crisp new buds of early spring, but the lush, full leaves of late May, breathing in sunlight and letting out long, cool sighs into the air. The wildflowers are taller, brushing his knees as he walks, and the bees work in low, steady patterns across every bloom. Even the sheep seem more relaxed, chewing with half-lidded eyes, their bodies warm from the sun and the long walk to pasture. He takes the high route more often now, winding through the pine groves where the air smells like sap and sky. The dog walks beside him, not rushing, not circling, just keeping close. The bond between them needs no renewing. They have crossed enough snow and shadow together to understand one another through breath alone. On one such day, as the boy rounds a familiar bend, he finds a small cairn 3 stones stacked neatly on a tree stump right where the trail splits into 2 narrow forks. He stops, not out of confusion, but out of recognition. This was not here yesterday. It is not a warning. It is not a trap. It is a sign left the way someone might say I passed through here too, in the language of the mountain. He kneels and places a 4th stone gently atop the others, smoothing the edges before standing again and continuing down the left path. At the pasture, the grass is thick and full of seed. The sheep spread out like soft clouds on the earth, barely making a sound as they graze. The boy sits beneath his usual tree, but instead of eating, he writes. Not a letter, there is no one to send it to. Just a thought scribbled on a small scrap of paper. We are still here. He folds it and tucks it inside the hollow of the tree trunk, where bark is peeled away like an opening door. He does not expect it to be found, but that is not the point. The act itself is enough. That night, the sky is clear, and the stars blink overhead in long, slow rhythms like ancient breathing. He and his sister sit outside again, sharing roasted chestnuts and tea. She hums under her breath an old folk song from their childhood, one their mother used to sing when thunder rolled through the mountains. He leans back against the cottage wall, letting the music drift over him like a blanket. Then, in the distance, a flash, faint, orange, a flare, a fire. It is far off, too far to worry, but not too far to notice. His sister stops humming. They look at each other, but say nothing. Some things are better left to silence. The flash comes again, then vanishes. They finish their tea in quiet, each one listening to the rhythm of their own thoughts. The next morning, a ribbon is tied to their gate, green, thin, worn, a message from someone passing through another, thank you, perhaps, or a warning. The boy takes it gently and places it beside the painted stone on the windowsill. These objects now form a kind of altar, though no one calls it that, just a quiet space for things left behind by unseen hands. The flock grows restless as the air thickens with the scent of coming rain. He leads them along the mid-trail, choosing caution over distance. As they pass the chapel ruins again, he notices a small pile of fabric tucked near the old altar. Not left there carelessly, but with care folded, weighed down with a smooth stone. Inside, wrapped tightly, is a tin box. He carries it home, opens it carefully in the barn beneath the oil lamp. Inside, matches, thread, a button, a sliver of soap, a pencil no longer than a finger, and a photograph. The photo is faded but clear enough to show three figures, two adults and a child, standing beside a bicycle on a dusty road. None are smiling. All are looking directly at the camera, as if daring the moment to forget them. The boy stares at the photo for a long time, then wraps it again and places the tin beneath a floorboard near the shed. He will not use the items, not unless they are needed. That evening, he takes a different path, one that loops through the lower orchard, where a few apple trees still stand despite the cold and the long years. There are no apples yet, but the leaves tremble with promise. He finds an old bench beneath one of the trees and sits for a while, watching the clouds gather in the distance. The dog lies nearby, nose on paws, eyes half closed. The orchard was once part of a neighbor's land, long since abandoned. The family fled when the war came close. No one speaks of them anymore, but the boy remembers. A girl his age, always with braids and a loud laugh. She once threw an apple at his head and ran off giggling. That was years ago. It feels like it happened in another lifetime. Maybe it did. He picks up a fallen branch and draws in the dirt. Not words, just shapes. Lines, spirals, a winding path, a sheep, a bell. A face he cannot quite finish. Then he smooths it away, again with his foot, and stands as the first drops of rain begin to fall, soft and sparse. The air smells of stone and smoke in spring. He walks home slowly, rain tapping his shoulders, the dog close by. The cottage glows ahead with lamplight, and as he approaches, he can see his sister's silhouette moving through the window preparing supper, folding cloth, keeping the rhythm. He steps inside. The warmth is immediate, full of spice and wood and the gentle sound of boiling water. He hangs his coat by the door, wipes the mud from his boots, and sits by the fire. He says nothing about the tin, nothing about the photograph. Some things are not meant for speaking. Outside, the rain falls harder now, but the sheep are safe. The dog is dry. The fire is steady. And the mountain listens still, always listening, always watching, as the shepherd closes his eyes and lets the day slip quietly into sleep. The rain doesn't stop for 3 full days. It falls in quiet sheets, not harsh or angry, but persistent, like a lullaby hummed low and long. The mountain darkens, soaking in the water like an old sponge, and the trails turn to soft mud that clings to boots and slows every step. The sheep remain penned, their wool heavy with dampness, and the dog lies on the wooden floor of the cottage, tail twitching in half-sleep, dreaming of dry grass and open paths. Inside, the world shrinks to the size of a few small rooms, the hearth, the table, the loft above where the boy stores bundles of hay, wrapped in burlap. In this hush, life becomes even slower. The boy mends. He patches the frayed strap on his satchel. He tightens the sole on his left boot with a bent nail and a bit of twine. He sharpens the blade of the shears and oils the latch on the gate. He and his sister speak little, not out of coldness, but out of understanding. The quiet is thick now, but comforting. A kind of warmth that doesn't need to be explained. They move like dancers in an old pattern. She slices onions, he carries water. She folds the linen. He feeds the fire. On the second night, the boy hears a knock. Not loud. Just 3 soft taps against the door, like fingers made of wind. He rises slowly, glances at his sister. She nods once. He lifts the latch and opens the door to the rain. No one is there. But something is. On the ground rests a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Inside, a half loaf of bread, a flask of clean water, and a handkerchief with stitched initials BC. The boy takes it in without a word, sets it on the table, unwraps the contents carefully. They sit together, side by side, sharing the bread and water in silence. No note, no sign of who left it. But the meaning is clear. A return, a gesture, a circle completed. The rain finally slows on the morning of the 4th day, retreating into the soil and leaving the mountains slick and shining. The air smells like iron and moss, and mist coils between the trees like smoke from a sleeping giant's breath. The sheep stir again, eager to stretch their legs. The dog dances from stone to stone, careful not to sink into the soft places along the path. The boy walks slower, more carefully, his stick tapping ahead like a guide. They follow the narrow ridge trail today, skirting the edge of the forest and passing under branches heavy with raindrops. He stops once to watch the water trickle down the bark, pooling in a knot near the roots before slipping away. Everything glistens. Everything feels reborn. At the upper pasture, the ground is soft, but the grass has grown. The sheep munch happily, and the boy lays out a cloth to sit upon. He removes the tin from his coat, yes, the same one with the photograph, and sets it beside him. He opens it again and looks once more at the faces in the image. He tries to imagine their voices. Were they loud, soft-spoken? Did they laugh often, or rarely? What kind of stories did they tell each other before sleep? He doesn't cry, not quite, but something in his throat swells warm and hard, and full of something he cannot name. He closes the tin again, gently, and places it in a hollow beneath a tree, root not buried, but nestled, protected. He marks the spot with a small pile of pine needles, not to hide it, but to let it rest. The mountain will remember. It always does. That evening, he and his sister prepare a stew with the last of the carrots and a few pieces of salted pork. The air is still damp, but the fire crackles strong, and the walls of the cottage feel softer somehow, less like stone and more like skin. They eat slowly, savoring the warmth, the flavor, the peace. Afterward, the boy returns to the pasture, not for the sheep, not for work, just a walk. The mist is thinner now, lifting in slow ribbons as the sun tries to break through. He follows the path past the chapel ruins, past the linden tree, down to the edge of the frozen lake, now melted to a dark mirror that holds the sky like a secret. He kneels at the water's edge. No reason, just to listen. A frog chirps once. A twig snaps far away. The dog sits beside him, head tilted. And there, in the water's surface, he sees it, his reflection. Yes, but more. The girl, not beside him, not behind him, but within the shape of the world. A memory, or something more. Her scarf, red and white, draped across a branch nearby. How did it get here? He doesn't move to take it. He only watches it flutter. Something in him shifts, like a weight placed gently on the other side of a scale. Balance. That's what it is. The feeling of being exactly where he is meant to be. Not for glory, not for resistance, just to witness and to guard and to care in quiet ways. As he rises to walk home, the wind picks up again, playful now, tugging at his coat, rustling the trees, ringing the faint sound of a sheep's bell far behind him. He smiles just barely and places one hand over his heart. The path ahead is known. The night is calm, and the mountain watches still, holding every name, every silence, every offering made beneath its wide and patient sky. The summer comes slowly, like a sigh drawn out over many weeks. The cold disappears not all at once, but in little patches, first from the windows, then from the cracks between floorboards, then from the air itself. The warmth returns gently, with longer days and sweeter smells, and a softness to the wind that feels like being rocked to sleep. The shepherd boy no longer wears his heavy coat in the morning, just a wool sweater, threadbare at the cuffs, and the same scarf he's worn since the start of winter, now bleached slightly from sun and time. The grass is higher now, thick and plush beneath the sheep's feet. They move through it with pleasure, stopping often to chew, blinking lazily at the soft blue sky. The dog runs through the field like he's younger than he is, tongue hanging from his mouth, paws kicking up clumps of green. The boy walks behind them, stick in hand, but there's little need for direction these days. The flock knows where to go. The trail knows how to guide them. There is a stillness in the mountain, now a silence, but a fullness, as if everything is exactly where it belongs. Birds sing constantly from every direction, warbling from branch to branch in melodies the boy cannot name, but always recognizes. Bees hum low over clover, their little bodies fat with pollen. Even the streams sound different now, gurgling with more joy, less urgency. The boy feels it in his bones. The earth is breathing easier. Still, not everything is peaceful. There are signs, not loud ones, but quiet, unsettling ones. One morning he finds the sheep clustered in one corner of the field, nervous, pressed together, tighter than usual. The dog paces restlessly, tail low, eyes scanning the trees. The boy searches the area. No tracks, no scent, but something has passed through. Something not meant to be seen. Later that same day he spots the glint of metal far off on a distant ridge. Just a flash, like sunlight hitting steel. Then it's gone. He says nothing to his sister, nothing to the sheep. But that night he adds a second log to the fire, and keeps the dog closer than usual. The following day, there is a ribbon tied to the chapel door. Black, faded, torn. The boy unties it and tucks it into his belt. No note, no stone. Just a signal, a shadow of someone else moving through the same land. He does not know what it means, not exactly, but he knows enough. He adds another day's ration to the tin near the root, leaves it in the hollow without a word. He has started to walk farther again up the less used paths through the tall pines that mark the northern slope, places he hasn't visited since autumn, it feels right now. The forest welcomes him with open arms, each needle-covered floor quiet beneath his steps, each bird cry answered by another like old friends calling through trees. On one such walk, he finds a clearing round, bright, wild with flowers he doesn't remember planting, poppies mostly, orange and red and yellow, swaying gently as if they're bowing to the sun. In the center stands a wooden cross, rough-hewn, unmarked. At its base, a scarf, red and white. He kneels without touching it. He knows. He doesn't need to ask. This is a grave, though there is no name. A place of rest for someone who moved through these woods, who ate his bread, who took shelter in shadow. He doesn't cry, but he stays a long while, watching the petals move in the wind, listening to the hum of bees and the faraway song of a mountain bird. He places a small stone beside the scarf, then stands and walks away, leaving the place just as it was. That evening he writes a word on a slip of paper, just one, peace. He tucks it inside a hollow knot in the linden tree. Whether anyone finds it doesn't matter. The act is enough. The mountain holds everything. It remembers even what's never spoken aloud. His sister begins to sing again, not often, just in the evenings as she prepares bread or washes the floor. Little tunes, half-forgotten songs from their mother's apron days. The boy doesn't join in, but he listens. Sometimes he hums, but always quietly, always after she has stopped. The sound of her voice fills the spaces between thoughts. It brings him comfort. More days pass. The weather softens even further. The sheep grow bold, straying farther, lingering longer in the high grass. One day the boy finds one caught in a thorny bush, its wool tangled tight, its body shaking with panic. He speaks to it gently, whispering soft nonsense as he untangles the mess, working carefully so as not to hurt. The dog watches nearby, quiet and still. When the sheep is free, it stands motionless for a moment, then presses its head to the boy's leg, just once, before wandering back to the flock. That night he dreams, not of war, not of fear, but of walking miles and miles of soft green paths, of shoes made of moss and bells that ring not to warn, but to welcome. In the dream, the girl with the scarf walks beside him. Her face is calm. Her hands are full of flowers. They say nothing to each other. There is no need. He wakes with a start, breath slow, eyes wide. The fire is still burning. The dog is still sleeping. His sister is still humming in the next room. Everything is safe. Everything is still. But something lingers from the dream, a feeling, a sound, a warmth that won't leave. He rises, pulls on his boots, and steps outside. The stars are thick tonight, like salt scattered across black velvet. He walks to the edge of the yard and looks out across the valley. Somewhere out there others are walking, others are hiding, others are remembering. But for now he watches, he breathes, he waits, and the mountain, faithful as ever, listens in silence. holding the dreams of all who walk its slopes beneath the endless night sky. The days are long now, stretching like sleepy cats across the mountain. Mornings no longer arrive in darkness, but in a soft, golden hush that seeps through the cottage window like warm honey. The shepherd boy no longer wakes from cold, but from the gentle sounds of birds greeting the day and the light tapping of hooves in the pen outside. The mountain has settled into its summer rhythm, a pattern so ancient it feels like breathing. He begins his days earlier now, leading the sheep before the heat rises too high. The trail is dry and firm, flecked with pine needles and dust, and the air smells of warm bark, clean earth, and wild thyme. His boots are worn smooth at the heel, his sweater lighter than before, and the dog moves like a shadow beside him, steady, watchful, and content. The sheep spread wide across the pasture as they climb, eager and curious. He no longer needs to guide them closely. The flock knows the land as well as he does. They know which slope hides the sweetest grass, which patch of brush holds thorns, which stream bends around smooth rocks they like to step on. The dog circles now and then, but mostly he lies in the sun, tail twitching as flies buzz past his ears. The boy has begun keeping a journal, though he doesn't call it that. It's just a small bundle of folded pages tucked into his satchel. Sometimes he writes words, single thoughts, like sky warm today, or smelled apple blossoms on North Trail. Other times he sketches a curl of wool, a crooked tree, a shoe print not his own. He doesn't write every day, but when he does, it's slow and careful, like braiding something delicate. One afternoon, he returns to the field with the unmarked grave. The poppies are taller now, bright and burning beneath the sun. He brings with him a small carving, just a pebble with a sheep's shape etched into it. He places it gently at the foot of the cross. Then he kneels and whispers something too quiet to hear. Maybe a name, maybe a prayer. On his way back, he finds the trail blocked by a fallen tree, heavy and split from a storm. He cannot move it alone. He marks it with 3 stones, one on top of the other, then takes the longer path through the fern woods. It is slower but more beautiful. The ferns are thick here, brushing his knees as he walks, and the air is damp and green. A deer passes in the distance, pausing only once to look at him before vanishing into shadow. When he returns home that evening, his sister has made soup with dried lentils and wild greens. She's lit a candle, though it's still light outside, and placed a fresh cloth on the table. He knows without asking today would have been their father's birthday. He eats slowly, offering no words. But when they finish, he opens the door and walks outside, returning a few minutes later with a small stone. He places it on the mantel beside the others, and his sister nods. Nothing more is needed. That night, the wind changes again. It carries something new. Not a storm, not danger, just a shift. The boy senses it in his sleep. He dreams of bells ringing, not near, not far, but from within, bells that toll without sound. He wakes with his heart beating gently and goes to the window. The stars blink at him like old friends. Somewhere, an owl calls. He returns to bed without speaking. The next morning, he takes the sheep farther north, past the usual ridge, and into the meadow behind the abandoned vineyard. He hasn't walked this path in many months. The vines are dry, twisted, and tangled with weeds now, but the ground is good. The air is quiet. The dog pauses now and then to sniff the trail. They are not the only ones who have passed this way. At midday, he rests beneath a tree with peeling bark, eating the last piece of smoked cheese from the cellar and sipping water from his flask. A shadow passes overhead a hawk, circling lazily. The sheep barely notice. The dog lifts his head, then lowers it again. All is well. Later, as the sun begins to shift and the sky grows amber, the boy notices something different on a branch near the path. A cloth pouch, hanging by twine. He approaches slowly, untying it with care. Inside, dried berries, a flint stone, and a folded square of paper. This time there is writing. Small, neat, careful. For you. For watching. He folds it without reading it again, places it into his satchel alongside the journal and the stone-carved sheep. He looks around once more. No figure in the trees, no sound beyond the wind, but he smiles just barely. When he returns home that evening, the air is full of golden dust, and the sheep settle into the pen with heavy contentment. His sister stands at the door, wiping her hands on her apron. She looks at him for a long moment, then asks, for the first time in weeks, "Did you see anything?" He nods once. "Yes," he says. "Someone is still out there." She does not ask more. She only nods, then returns to the stove. He places the pouch gently on the shelf beside the tin, the scarf, and the small wood carving, each thing a thread, each thread a story. And that night, as the fire crackles low and the dog sighs in his sleep, the boy writes 3 words in his journal before blowing out the candle. I am listening. The mountain, as always, listens too. It listens to the breathing of the sheep, the silence of the girl in the woods, the careful hands that leave bundles at tree roots, and the boy who speaks little but understands everything in the language of stone and sky. The wind turns warmer now, and the bees hum longer into the evening, their low song blending with the distant clang of sheep bells in the grass. The shepherd boy wakes earlier than usual, even before the light fully settles across the hills. He feels it in his chest, not anxiety, not excitement, but that quiet readiness that happens before a shift, a knowing that something is coming, even if it cannot yet be seen. He dresses with care, not out of vanity, but with mindfulness. Clean socks, the sweater with the least frayed cuffs, his scarf knotted gently rather than thrown over his shoulder. He brushes off his boots before tying them, and as he latches the cottage door behind him, he runs one hand along its wood like a goodbye, or maybe just a promise to return. The sheep are calm this morning. They follow him willingly, their hooves tapping lightly over the path, their shadows stretched long by the early sun. The dog is more alert than usual, tail raised slightly, nose in the wind. The boy doesn't speak to him, but their shared quiet carries a message between them. Pay attention. They take the western trail today, one they haven't walked since the heavy rains. It curls down through a rocky slope lined with wild mint and soft grass, and opens into a small valley between 2 hills. The shepherd pauses there, letting the sheep graze while he sits on a fallen log. He unfolds the piece of paper from the pouch he received days ago, reads it again. For you, for watching. The words feel heavier now. Not a simple thank you, not only gratitude, something else, a connection, a thread, someone reaching back through the quiet to say, you matter. As he puts it away, a sound rises in the distance, not voices, not machinery, but music, a violin, faint like it's coming from underwater or a dream, a slow melody played with feeling, rising and dipping gently, like the wings of a gliding bird. He stands. The dog does too. Both listen. The sheep are still, all ears turned toward the hills. The boy begins to walk toward the sound, not quickly, not afraid, just drawn. Over the next ridge, across a narrow bridge of stones, into a thicket where sunlight dances in patches. There, sitting on a stump, is a man with a violin tucked beneath his chin. His clothes are worn, boots scuffed to nothing, hair tied back with twine, but his fingers move with grace. He does not look up. He plays like he is alone. The boy waits at a distance, listening to the song. It is not a melody, he knows, but it is beautiful, slow, and mournful, with moments of hope hidden like small lights in a dark forest. When it ends, the man lowers the bow, rests the instrument on his lap, and looks up with calm eyes. "She said you'd find me," he says simply. The boy doesn't ask who. He doesn't need to. The scarf, the pouch, the grave, the signs, all pieces in the same slow story. The man speaks again. "I'm leaving tonight. They're crossing at the eastern border. I have one more place to visit before I go." He reaches into his coat and pulls out a photograph, the same photograph the boy once found in the tin. "My family," the man says. "She was my daughter, the girl you helped." The boy nods. He places his hand over his chest. "She was brave." The man's voice catches slightly, but he doesn't cry. "Thank you," he says. Then, after a long pause, "Would you like me to play one more?" The boy sits cross-legged on the ground. The sheep form a loose semicircle behind him. The dog lies at his side, tail thumping once, then going still. The man raises the violin again. This time the tune is softer, like a cradle song, something older than the war, older than any memory. A melody meant not for crowds, but for the earth itself. The notes fall like feathers. The boy closes his eyes. When the music ends, the man stands, slings the violin over his back, and nods once more. "Take care of them," he says. "Take care of this place." And then he's gone, melting into the woods without another word. The boy does not follow. He stays there until the sun has moved across the sky, until the sheep begin to shift and bleat for movement, until the dog stands and stretches. Then, slowly, he leads them home. That evening, he writes a new word in his journal. Just one, music. He adds it to the altar beside the scarf, the stone, the folded paper. Each one now a voice. Each one now a chapter. Later, in the darkness, his sister asks him, "Did you see something today?" He doesn't answer directly. He just says, "I heard something important," and she nods, because she understands. Because sometimes the mountain speaks through things we cannot explain. And that night, as he falls asleep, he hears the violin again, not in the air, not in the room, but inside his chest, where the wind and heartbeats and memories live. The mountain listens as always, and this time it hums. The days after the music feel slower, deeper somehow, like the mountain has taken a long breath and is now exhaling through the trees and fields. The boy walks with a new kind of stillness, not just of body, but of spirit, as though he carries something unseen within him. Now, a note that doesn't fade, a silence that sings. The sheep follow as always, their hooves soft on the dusted trail, the dog weaving calmly beside them. But something is different, not in the land, but in the way he sees it. The paths he has walked all year now feel like old songs. Each step on the trail echoes with memory. There's the bend where the fox once watched him with bright eyes. There's the tree with the hollow knot where he left his first note. There's the stone he marked after helping the sheep out of the thorn bush. He knows them all by heart now, the way someone knows the tone of a loved one's voice in the dark. At the upper pasture, the wildflowers are thick and full of color. Blues and yellows and tiny white petals that cling to his boots as he walks through. The sheep seem to disappear into the field, only the bells revealing their presence, soft chimes floating on the wind. He lies in the grass, hat pulled low over his eyes, and listens to the bells, the bees, the distant hum of trees swaying in their slow mountain dance. He dreams without sleeping visions of paths through thick fog, of lanterns swinging from crooked shepherd staffs, of hands reaching out and never quite touching. He remembers the girl's face, the scarf, the violin's last note. All of it swirls gently behind his closed eyelids like dust in a warm beam of light. When he returns to the chapel ruins that evening, he finds something new. A candle, burnt halfway down, still warm. Beside it, a single word carved into the stone altar. Free. He kneels, touching the letters with his fingertips. The stone is damp, but the grooves are fresh. Someone carved it recently. He does not need to know who. He only knows what it means. Someone made it a cross. Someone survived. He pulls the folded note from his coat pocket, the one that simply read for you, for watching. He places it beside the candle stub, then adds a piece of fresh bread wrapped in cloth. A trade, a farewell, a continuation. The wind picks up just slightly, rushing through the chapel walls like breath through hollow bone. The boy stands, places his hand against the stone once more, then turns toward home, the sky now streaked with purples and soft gold. That night he does not speak to his sister. They eat by firelight, the dog resting beneath the table. The air is warm, thick with the smell of sage and pine smoke. After dinner, the boy steps outside and walks to the edge of the pasture, where the world falls away into the valley below. He watches the lights of distant villages blink in and out through the haze. Somewhere down there, people are hiding, running, rebuilding. Somewhere the war continues. But up here, in this stillness, it feels like something else, like a different kind of survival, one stitched together with kindness, patience, and footsteps taken slowly over sacred earth. He lies on his back in the grass, arms behind his head, eyes full of stars. They blink and scatter above him, like tiny memories placed in the sky long before he was born. He does not know their names, but he knows their patterns. He has walked beneath them long enough to feel when one is missing. The dog lies beside him, ears twitching, tail brushing his side with each sleepy breath. And there, in the tall grass, the boy begins to hum. Not loud, not exact, just a slow, soft tune with no words and no real melody. A hum that becomes a feeling that becomes a presence, something shared with the wind and the dark and the soil beneath his back. He doesn't know how long he stays there. Time blurs, the stars shift, the earth cools beneath him. When he finally rises, he brushes the grass from his clothes and walks back toward the cottage. The firelight flickers in the window. His sister has gone to bed, but before he steps inside, he pauses, looking back toward the field, the trees, the hills beyond. He places a hand on his heart and closes his eyes. There is nothing chasing him, no danger in the shadows, but he still feels watched in a good way. not by eyes, but by memory, and he whispers to no one and to everything, "Thank you." Then he steps inside, removes his boots, and lays the scarf, the red and white one, on the table. He smooths it gently, then folds it and places it in the drawer beside the bread knife and old church key. Not hidden, not forgotten, just safe. As he climbs into bed, the dog curls at his feet, and the coals in the hearth glow low. He pulls the blanket up to his chin and exhales slowly. The weight in his chest is gone now, or maybe it's simply changed shape, become something lighter, something easier to carry. The mountain is quiet, but not empty. It holds every name, every glance, every step he's taken. And as he drifts into sleep, the last thing he hears is the faintest echo of a violin one long note, drawn through the trees like a ribbon, circling high and wide until it fades into peace. The final days of summer stretch out like golden threads across the hills. The wind is softer now, less urgent, brushing gently through the grass like a hand smoothing down the edges of memory. The sun lingers longer over the ridge, casting wide shadows across the pasture, and even the sheep seem slower, heavier with calm. The shepherd boy wakes to the sound of bells, not alarm bells, not warning bells, but the soft, lazy clink of sheep grazing near the fence. He takes his time dressing, sipping warm milk from a chipped cup, brushing crumbs from the table as the dog nudges the door with his nose. There is no rush today, no plan. The war still breathes in the valleys far below, but up here the silence speaks louder, and it speaks of endings, of letting go. They walk together not to the upper field, not to the chapel, but along a quiet trail that winds behind the linden trees and leads to the place where the lake once froze in the heart of winter. Now it sparkles in the morning light, a still mirror of sky and leaf. The sheep gather slowly around the edges, noses low to the water, the dog watching them without command. The boy sits beneath a tree he doesn't have a name for, tall and twisted with bark like woven thread. He places his satchel beside him, opens it, and slowly takes out each item he has carried. The journal with its soft spined cover and loose pages tucked like feathers between the folds. The folded note that simply read, "For you," for watching the cloth pouch, the stone carved like a sheep, and finally the red and white scarf. He lays them before him in a line like an offering, like a trail, each one a story, each one a piece of something larger. The wind picks up slightly and lifts the edge of the scarf. He presses it back down gently with 2 fingers. "Stay," he whispers, though he's not sure if he's talking to the fabric or the memory. Then he opens the journal to the last page. The space is nearly full, now drawings, phrases, single words, stretched across lines like footprints through snow, but there is room for one more. He writes, "The mountain remembers," and so do I. Then he closes the journal and wraps it in cloth. Not to hide it, not to send it, but to preserve it. He places it beneath a flat stone near the tree's roots, tucking it into the earth the way one might tuck a letter into a coat pocket. It is not a goodbye. It is a planting. The walk home is quiet. The sheep trail behind him, their hooves soft on the path. The dog trots beside him, eyes forward, ears alert, tail swaying like a metronome to the boy's slow steps. There is nothing urgent left to do, no signs to leave, no notes to read, only the walk. At the cottage, the sun is beginning to lower, casting long streaks of gold across the doorway. His sister stands outside, hanging fresh herbs to dry sage, thyme, lavender. She looks at him and nods once. He nods back. It is enough. That night, they eat slowly, the light from the fire dancing across the wooden table. There is soup, bread, and a few slices of smoked meat saved from spring. Afterward, the boy takes a small lantern and walks outside alone. He walks past the pen, past the tool shed, past the leaning gate that creaks no matter how carefully it's latched. He walks to the edge of the hill where the world drops away into valleys below. The stars are beginning to blink into place. He counts them, not to track time, but to listen to the quiet between each light, the rhythm of their appearing. They are old, these stars. Older than war, older than mountains, older than even memory. But they shine just the same. He holds the scarf in his hands, presses it to his chest, then ties it around the branch of the nearest tree, not tight, just enough for it to catch the breeze. It flutters once, then stills. I'm still here, he says aloud. Then, softer, I will be. He walks back slowly, the lantern swinging at his side, the grass brushing his boots like 1,000 gentle hands. The dog waits at the cottage door. The fire glows behind the shutters, and the wind, soft and cool, carries no messages now, only comfort, only presence. Inside, he lies down on his bed, the blanket warm, the room still. His sister hums softly from her corner, a lullaby with no words. The dog sighs, the hearth crackles. The sheep bells ring faintly in the distance. And as the shepherd's eyes close, the mountain watches, listens, remembers. The bells fade. The fire dims. The world sleeps. And peace at last drapes itself across the hillside like a blanket of sky.